My name is Matthew Miller. I am 36 years old. I served as a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. I spent my youth in boots, carrying a pack, believing I knew what a threat looked like. But nothing in my training prepared me for what I saw 8 days ago. Today is Saturday, April 4th, 2026. I am sitting here, still shaking, because the things I was shown are starting right now. This month, this April, is the beginning of the end of the world as we have known it. I want to explain exactly how I got to that place. It was March 27th. I was home on a Friday morning, just trying to be a good husband and take care of the house. The weather was unusually warm for that time of year, and I had noticed a few shingles on the roof that had been lifted by the wind the night before. I pulled my old extension ladder out of the garage. It was a heavy thing made of fiberglass and aluminum. I've climbed things 10 times more dangerous in the Corps, so I didn't think twice about it. I set the feet of the ladder on the concrete walkway that runs along the side of our house. I made sure it was steady. I climbed up step by step, feeling the familiar weight of my tool belt against my hips. I reached the top and started working. I could see my wife, Sarah, through the kitchen window below. She was making coffee, moving about in that quiet, peaceful way she has. I remember thinking how lucky I was to be home, to be safe, to have a life away from the sand and the noise of deployment. Then it happened. I didn't feel the ladder slip. I felt the ground give way. It was as if the gravity of the earth suddenly doubled. The feet of the ladder kicked out, and there was nothing for me to grab onto but the air. I remember the blue of the sky spinning. I remember the terrifying realization that I was going to hit the concrete. The impact was a sound more than a feeling. It was a wet, heavy thud. I felt my breath leave my body in a single violent rush. For a second, there was a white-hot flash of agony in the back of my head, and then the world went quiet. I could see Sarah running out the door. I could see her mouth moving, her face twisted in a scream, but I couldn't hear her. I was looking at her from about 10 feet above the ground. I saw my own body lying there, twisted, with blood starting to pool on the gray concrete. I felt a strange sense of calm. I wasn't afraid. I felt lighter than I'd ever felt in my life. I watched as two neighbors, a man named Joshua and a woman named Ashley, ran over to help. I saw them trying to find a pulse. I saw the ambulance pull up and the paramedics, Christopher and Jessica, working frantically on me. But I was moving away. I wasn't traveling through a tunnel. I was simply becoming aware of a different reality. The neighborhood faded away like a mist under the morning sun. I found myself standing in a place that didn't have a floor or a ceiling. It was made of light that felt like it had substance. It wasn't bright in a way that hurt my eyes. It was bright in a way that made me feel like I could finally see. And that is when I saw him. He was standing a few yards away from me. He didn't look like the paintings I had seen in Sunday school. He didn't look like a stranger. He looked like the person I'd been waiting for my entire life without knowing it. He was wearing a simple robe, and his skin was the color of bronze that had been polished by the wind. When I looked into his eyes, I felt like he was reading every thought I had ever had, every secret I had ever kept. And yet, he didn't turn away. He smiled. It was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. I fell to my knees because the weight of his goodness was so heavy I couldn't stand. I felt my heart breaking and being mended at the same time. I tried to speak, to apologize for the things I had done wrong in my life, but he reached out and touched my shoulder. His hand was warm, real, and strong. He said, "Matthew, do not be afraid. I have brought you here to show you what must be said. The world is changing and my people are sleeping. You must go back and tell them what you see." His voice didn't come from his mouth. It came from everywhere. It was like music that you feel in your bones. He didn't use complicated words. He spoke with a clarity that made everything else seem like a shadow. He stood me up, and as he did, the light around us shifted. He began to show me the first of many things. The first thing I saw was the great bridges of our country. I saw the massive steel structures that hold our cities together. I saw the George Washington Bridge, the bridges over the Mississippi, and the long spans that crossed the bays. They were filled with cars. It was April and the sun was shining, but there was a feeling of panic in the air. I saw people trying to leave the big cities. They were packed into their vehicles with their families and their belongings. They were looking for a way out. thinking that the water would protect them, or that the other side of the river was safer. Jesus looked at the bridges and his face grew solemn. He said, "Look at the arteries of the nation. They are being pinched shut." As I watched, I saw the metal begin to groan. It wasn't just an explosion or a bomb. It was as if the very foundations of the earth were shifting beneath the water. I saw the massive cables snap like threads. I saw the concrete crumble. Thousands of cars filled with fathers and mothers and children began to slide into the dark, churning water below. The bridges weren't just breaking, they were being pulled down. I saw people opening their car doors trying to swim, but the water was cold and violent. There was no one to save them because the bridges on either side had also failed. The cities became islands of fire, and the bridges became dead ends. Jesus told me, "Tell them, do not be on the bridges when the movement begins. Do not think that the way out is over the water. When the earth trembles in April, the bridges will become traps for those who rely on the strength of man's hands." I felt a deep sorrow in my chest watching those families disappear. I thought of my own wife, my own neighbors. I wanted to reach out and stop the cars, but I couldn't. The vision shifted then. The water and the broken steel disappeared, and I was looking at the skyline of a massive city. It looked like New York or Chicago, a place where the buildings are so tall they seem to touch the clouds. They were beautiful, made of shining glass and polished stone. They were symbols of how much money and power we have. But as I looked, I noticed something strange. The air around the buildings began to vibrate. It wasn't a sound you could hear, but a frequency you could feel. It was a deep, low thrumming that made my teeth ache. I saw the glass start to ripple. Then, all at once, in a million different windows, the glass shattered. It didn't fall inward. It exploded outward. I saw a rain of glass, millions of sharp, jagged pieces, falling down onto the streets below. The people on the sidewalks had no chance. They were being cut down by the very beauty they had built. Then the buildings themselves began to sway. These skyscrapers were designed to move with the wind, but they weren't designed for this. I saw the internal structures, the steel beams and the concrete cores beginning to snap. I saw people on the high floors looking out through the holes where the windows used to be. They were trapped, the elevators were dead, the stairwells were choked with smoke and debris. They were 50, 60, 80 stories in the air, watching the world below them turn into a graveyard. Jesus called these places the glass tombs. He showed me that when the power fails and the earth begins to shake this month, these tall towers will become the most dangerous places on earth. He said, "The higher they have climbed in their pride, the further they will have to fall. Do not seek refuge in the towers of the merchants. Stay close to the ground where the earth can hold you." I saw the buildings begin to lean, one into another, creating a domino effect of destruction that leveled entire districts in a matter of minutes. The dust rose up and covered the sun until it was dark as night in the middle of the afternoon. The vision changed again, and I was looking at the hospitals and the medical centers. I saw the long hallways and the bright fluorescent lights. I saw the doctors and the nurses, people like Brandon and Kimberly, working hard to take care of the sick. But then I saw the lights flicker and die. I saw the machines that breathe for people stop. I saw the monitors go dark. I saw the pharmacies. The shelves were empty. People were banging on the doors, screaming for medicine for their children, for insulin, for heart pills, for things they needed just to live another day. But there was nothing left. The trucks had stopped moving because the bridges were gone and the roads were blocked. The hospitals, which were supposed to be places of healing, became places of quiet desperation. I saw the rooms filling up. There weren't enough beds, so people were lying in the hallways on the cold tile floors. I saw the staff trying their best, but they were exhausted and afraid. They had no tools left. No clean water, no medicine, no power. Jesus showed me that we have become a people who trust in the bottle and the pill more than we trust in the hand that created us. He said, "The medicine will fail. The healers will be helpless. Tell my people to learn the way of the Spirit, for the flesh will have no support in the days of the great silence." I watched as the hospitals were abandoned, one by one, because there was nothing left to give but comfort, and even that was hard to find in the dark. I stood there with Jesus, the weight of the hospital vision still heavy on my heart. I looked at his hands and I saw the scars there. They weren't ugly, they looked like silver light, a reminder of what he had already walked through for us. He didn't rush me. He let me process the grief of seeing those empty medicine cabinets in the dark hallways of the clinics. Then he turned his gaze toward the horizon of the spirit world, and the light shifted again. I saw the great stadiums and arenas of our country. I saw the massive concrete bowls where tens of thousands of people gathered to cheer for their teams or listen to music. I saw places like the ones in Texas, Florida, and California, huge, shining monuments to our love for games. But in this vision, it wasn't game day. I saw long lines of buses, yellow and white, pulling up to the gates. I saw people being unloaded, thousands of them. They were carrying plastic bins and trash bags filled with their clothes. They looked tired, their eyes wide with the kind of shell-shocked stare I used to see in combat zones. I watched as the men and women in uniforms, not my brothers in the Corps, but state guards and local authorities, directed the crowds inside. They were telling the people through megaphones that these stadiums were safe zones. They said there would be food, water, and protection from the chaos happening in the streets. I saw a young father named Michael and his wife Jennifer, Bud Gagrit's eye, holding their two small children. They looked so relieved to be inside the thick concrete walls. They thought they were being saved from the storms and the riots. But as soon as the floor of the stadium was packed with people, I saw the heavy steel gates slide shut. I heard the sound of the locks clicking into place. It was a sound that made my stomach turn. On the outside, I saw the guards moving away. They weren't staying to protect the people. They were leaving them there. I saw the massive stadium lights flicker once, twice, and then die. Total darkness swallowed the crowd. Jesus stood beside me, his face showing a stern kind of love. He said, "Matthew, do not let your feet carry you into the places of the world's assembly. They call these places refuges, but they are cages. My people have spent their lives worshiping the strength of athletes and the voices of singers, and now they run to those same altars for safety. But there is no life in the concrete. When the doors lock this month, those inside will find that they have traded their freedom for a floor of cold dirt and the breath of 1,000 terrified strangers." I saw what happened next in the dark. Without sanitation, without running water, and without a way to leave, the stadiums became pits of sickness. I saw the people realize too late that no one was coming to feed them. The government had gathered them there just to keep them out of the way, to contain the problem. It was heartbreaking. I wanted to scream a warning to Michael and Jennifer, to tell them to turn around and run for the woods, but the vision was moving on. Next, I saw the massive buildings of the megachurches. These were the places with the tall steeples and the giant screens, the ones that look like shopping malls or concert halls. I saw the parking lots full of expensive cars. I saw the people inside, dressed in their best clothes, sitting in comfortable chairs. On the stages, I saw men in suits with perfectly styled hair. They were smiling and waving their hands, telling the people that God wanted them to be rich, that God would never let anything bad happen to America, and that they just needed to keep giving money to stay blessed. I saw the screens behind them showing beautiful images of sunshine and money. But then the vision changed. I saw the spiritual reality of those buildings. They weren't full of light. They were full of a gray, thick fog. The words of the preachers were falling to the floor like dead leaves. Then the ground began to ripple. This April, the earth itself will reject the weight of these false altars. I saw the massive roofs, built more for show than for strength, begin to buckle. I saw the chandeliers fall. I saw the giant screens crash down onto the stages. The people didn't know how to pray. They had been taught how to sing songs and how to feel good, but they didn't know how to fall on their faces and seek the true God. They were running in circles, calling out to a God they had invented in their own image, a God of comfort and convenience. Jesus looked at the collapsing buildings with a fire in his eyes. He said, "They have built empires in my name, but they do not know my heart. They have told the people that the storm would not come, and now the people are caught without a foundation. Tell them, do not look for me in the houses of the merchants. My spirit has departed from the places where the truth is sold for a price. When the walls of these great temples crack this month, the silver and the gold will not hold up the ceiling. I saw the preachers running for the back doors, trying to save their own lives while their congregations were buried under the wreckage of their own pride. The vision shifted again, and I was standing in the middle of a financial district. I saw the tall banks and the stock exchange buildings. I saw the ATMs on every corner. People were lined up at the machines, frantically punching in their numbers. I saw a man named David, a businessman who looked like he had never missed a meal in his life. He was sweating, hitting the screen of the machine over and over again. The screen just said error or system offline. I saw the digital world dying. The numbers on the screens, the ones that people spend their whole lives chasing, were just vanishing. I saw the banks locking their doors. Behind the glass, I saw the bank managers, people like Robert and Susan, looking out at the crowds with terror. They knew the truth. The money wasn't there. It was all just light on a screen, and the light had gone out. I saw people holding stacks of paper money, trying to buy a loaf of bread or a gallon of water. But the store owners were shaking their heads. The paper was just paper. It had no value anymore because the trust was gone. I saw people throwing their wallets into the street in frustration. The wealth they had spent 40 years building was gone in 40 minutes. Jesus said to me, "The scales of the merchants are broken, Matthew. They have trusted in the rust and the moth, and now the thief has come. Tell my people, do not go to the banks looking for your life. Your silver will be thrown into the streets like trash this month. The only currency that will buy you peace is the oil in your lamp. If you have not stored up the things of the Spirit, your pockets will be empty when the great shaking begins." I saw the great financial centers of the world becoming hollow shells, the wind whistling through the empty offices where billions of dollars used to move with the click of a button. Then the vision moved to the water treatment plants and the great dams. I saw the massive pipes that bring water to our homes. I saw the reservoirs that feed our cities. It seemed so solid, so permanent. But I saw the pumps stop. I saw the chemicals that clean the water run out. I saw the workers walking away because they had to go home to protect their own families. The water in the pipes stopped flowing. I saw people in their kitchens, like a woman named Mary, turning the tap and hearing only a dry, hissing sound. No water came out. I saw people running to the rivers and the lakes, but the water there was gray and oily. Without the plants to clean it, the water was a carrier of death. I saw children crying because their throats were dry, and mothers trying to boil water over small fires in their backyards, but the sickness was still there. Jesus showed me that we have forgotten that He is the source of the living water. He said, "They have turned away from the spring of life and dug for themselves broken cisterns that can hold no water. This month the fountains of the earth will dry up for those who do not know how to ask me for the rain. Tell them, do not trust in the tap or the pipe. Store what you can, but know that only the one who walks with me will find the hidden well in the desert." I felt the thirst myself in that moment, a dry ache in my throat that made me realize how fragile we are. We think we are so advanced, but without a simple drink of water, we are nothing. The vision was so clear, so detailed, that I could smell the stagnant water and the dust in the air. I saw the infrastructure we take for granted, the things we never even think about, just falling apart because there was no one left to keep the machines running. I stood there in that place of light, and my heart was heavy with the weight of everything I had seen. I looked at Jesus, and I saw that He wasn't just showing me these things to scare me. He was showing them to me, because He loves the people who are in those places. He sees every face, knows every name, and feels every bit of the fear that is coming. He turned His eyes toward the great open spaces of our country, the places where the long gray ribbons of the interstates stretch out for thousands of miles. I saw the highways. I saw I-95, I-10, and I-75. They were packed with cars. In this vision, the panic had reached a fever pitch. People were trying to drive away from the cities, away from the coast, and away from the darkness. I saw families in minivans, old men in trucks, and students in small cars. I saw a man named Thomas, an older man with a gray beard, trying to keep his wife calm as they sat in a line of traffic that didn't move for hours. The heat of April was rising from the asphalt. Engines were overheating. People were running out of gas. I saw the shoulders of the road filled with abandoned vehicles. People were starting to walk, carrying what they could, but there was nowhere to go. The exits were blocked by accidents and stalls. The interstates, which we built to give us freedom and movement, became giant parking lots of despair. Jesus said to me, "Matthew, tell them that the road to safety is not found on a map. They think they can outrun the shadow, but the shadow is already ahead of them. When the engines go quiet this month, the roads will become the walls of their own prison. Do not wait for the warning to move, for when the warning comes, the path will already be closed. Seek the narrow way that leads to life, for the broad roads of the world are being cut into pieces." I saw the bridges at the end of these highways falling and the tunnels collapsing, leaving millions of people stranded in the middle of nowhere with no food, no shade, and no hope. Then the vision shifted to the nerve center of our life. I saw the power substations. I saw the humming transformers and the tangled webs of high-voltage wires that crisscrossed the land. I saw the control rooms where people like Kevin and Sarah sat in front of glowing screens trying to manage the flow of electricity. But then I saw a pulse of light from the sky. It wasn't a bomb. It was something else, a wave of energy that seemed to melt the very heart of the machines. I saw the transformers explode in showers of blue and orange sparks. I saw the wires whip through the air like dying snakes. In a single moment, the hum of the nation stopped. I saw the cities go dark. I saw the refrigerators stop cooling. I saw the pumps that bring water and the heaters that keep people warm just quit. This was the Great Blackout. Without the grid, the world became a very small, very dark place. I saw people in their homes suddenly plunged into a silence they didn't know how to handle. They reached for their phones, but the towers were dead. They reached for the light switches, but nothing happened. The machines that we have used as a substitute for God's light were gone. Jesus looked at the darkened map of the country and said, "The light of the world is not carried in a wire. They have traded the sun for a bulb, and now the bulb is broken. Tell my people, when the darkness falls this April, do not be afraid of the shadows outside, but look to the lamp within. If you have not found my light in the quiet times, you will not find your way in the night that is coming. The grid will not be rebuilt. The age of the machine is ending, and the age of the spirit is at hand." I saw the darkness spreading like ink over the hills and valleys, until the only lights left were the small flickering candles of those who had prepared their hearts. The final physical location appeared before us. I saw the airports. I saw the massive terminals of O'Hare, LAX, and Hartsfield-Jackson. They were overflowing with humanity. It was a scene of total chaos. People were screaming at ticket agents, fighting over seats on the last planes out. I saw a woman named Linda holding her young daughter's hand so tight her knuckles were white. They were trying to get to a plane that would take them to another country, anywhere but here. But as I watched, I saw the sky turn a strange, bruised color. I saw the planes on the runways stop moving. The pilots, men like Captain Robert and First Officer Stephen, were looking at their instruments in confusion. The navigation systems were dead. The radios were silent. Then I saw the first of the attacks. Missiles and drones came out of the clouds, targeting the hangars and the fuel depots. I saw the massive explosions rip through the terminals. I saw the glass from the giant windows turn into a storm of blades. The planes, filled with people hoping for escape, became infernos of jet fuel and fire. There was no way out. The airports were the ultimate trap. They were the places where people went to find wings, but they found only fire. Jesus looked at the burning ruins of the airports, and his voice was like a trumpet. He said, "There is no flight from the hand of God. They thought they could fly above the judgment, but the heavens are mine. Tell them, do not go to the airports. Do not think that another land will be safer, for the whole earth is being shaken. The wings of man are made of wax, and they are melting in the heat of this April. Stay where you are. Stand your ground. Trust in the one who walks on the wings of the wind." I saw the runways cracked and broken, and the beautiful planes turned into charred skeletons of metal, and I knew that no one was leaving. The borders were sealed by fire. The visions of the world faded away then. The fire and the darkness and the broken bridges were gone. I was back in that place of pure light, standing with Jesus. I felt exhausted, as if I had lived 100 lives in a few minutes. I looked at him, and I knew that he was sending me back. I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay in the peace and the love that was coming from him. But he had given me a job to do. He looked at me one last time, and then he pointed to something behind me. I turned around, and I saw a being I hadn't noticed before. It was an angel, but it wasn't like the ones in the books. This angel was massive, towering over me. He was wearing armor that looked like it had been through 1,000 wars. It was dented, scratched, and scorched, but it was incredibly strong. The angel was holding a flag, the American flag. It was the flag I had served under, the flag I had carried in my heart for 36 years. The angel looked at me with eyes that were both fierce and kind. He wasn't there to destroy, he was there to defend. He was the guardian of the remnant, the one who would stand with the soldiers of the Spirit when the world fell apart. Jesus nodded, and I understood that even in the middle of the fire, we wouldn't be alone. The vision of the angel was the last thing I saw before I felt the crushing weight of my body again. I felt the cold concrete under my back. I felt the blood, I felt the pain, but I also felt the truth burning inside me like coal. I opened my eyes to see the paramedics leaning over me. I saw the tears on Sarah's face. I knew that my life would never be the same. I had been given a message, and I have to deliver it. I am not a preacher, and I am not a politician. I am just a man who saw the truth. The angel with the American flag was fighting for the soul of this nation. He is looking for soldiers, not soldiers with guns, soldiers with prayer, soldiers who will refuse to take the mark, soldiers who will serve God no matter what happens, soldiers who will warn others and help others turn away from the deception, soldiers who will stand firm when everything around them is falling apart. That is the message. That is the warning. That is the call. God bless you. God bless America.